I'm very humbled and delighted to be here on behalf of Accenture to talk to you about the concept of career capital, as well as my own career story. So I realized that it has been a very powerful and emotional day, especially for me, hearing out some really amazing and phenomenal, bold talks from all the women and fellow speakers that we have heard from today. So I don't want this to come across as a corporate topic. I get to tell you a little bit about my company that I'm very proud to work for. But I also would like to shed some light into my story, and I'm hoping that you'd be able to learn from it, and that this session would be useful for you. So the success of our women globally is key to Accenture's success. And we happen to have 100,000 women, over 100,000 women. So 36% of our workforce is actually females. So my company, Accenture, is very committed to supporting their growth and in nurturing an environment and a culture where they can define their own definition of success. So with that, I want to take a moment to tell you a little bit about the definition of what is career capital. So before I jump into that, there's this initiative that we have within the company to emphasize our commitment to women, and it's and also in line with what the United Nations have recognized in terms of a day that's been dedicated to recognize the women's contribution to the global economy, and that's, of course, is International Women's Day. So Accenture recognizes International Women's Day, and every year we have a theme whereby we hope that we inspire with that theme our women, as well as sharing the knowledge in the outer community. So last year's theme, we were here, the audience at Bold Talk last year in 2013 got to hear from my colleague, Rebecca Schmidt, and she spoke about how you would be able to define your career your way, so defining success your way. And we talked about how we'd go about developing our women, enabling them to success, enabling them to thrive, and empowering them. And we are building on this theme. So this year's theme is about knowing and growing your career capital. And we hope to inspire women to think about the different ways in which they can bank on the investments they're putting in throughout their career journey so that they can cash out later. So it's a different way to think about things, but if you try to imagine the skills that you need, the networks that you need to build, all the acquired capabilities that you need to have in order to get you to where you want to be one day. So that's the overall kind of like loose definition of career capital. And I'll try to tie that in with my personal career story. We've been celebrating the International Women's Day for over 10 years globally, and it's been almost 4 years here in the Middle East, in the UAE. And we had the pleasure of hosting a lot of phenomenal women from across the region. I was happy to say that I met Sufana Dahlan for the first time during International Women's Day, and amongst a panel of really inspiring women, she shared her story, and she was able to relate her learnings to our women. So with that, I want to talk to you about my story and how it relates to career capital. So for those who know me, I come from a very little and beautiful island. It's called Bahrain, and it's in the heart of the Arabian Gulf. And at the time when I was born, guess what? We were just over 100,000 citizens. So we are just about the same number that we are women here today in Accenture. So back then in the early 90s, swimming against the norm was very much frowned upon in society. Bahrain is a very small country. And people are used to doing the same exact things. After you graduate from school, and somewhere between graduation and university years, women in Bahrain tend to get married and start a family. So aiming high career-wise was not really the norm. So I remember it was back then with the advent of the personal computer. It wasn't really common back then. Don't try to calculate my age. Bill Gates was becoming a very, like a household name. And I remember being drawn to that corporate world. Yet I had just graduated from Scotland, and even then, I was amongst 3 girls in a class of 150 male students studying software engineering. And I started out my career in a very humble position in a public sector organization. And I was a programmer. And I was young and ambitious, and I was really looking forward to sharing everything that I learned during my university years and putting that into my working life. Now, ministries or public sector organizations by design are very complex organizations. They're very hierarchical, and just felt that at that time I had so much creativity in me that I needed an outlet for it, and that job didn't allow me an outlet for it. So I reached at a stage where I actually felt very depressed. I wanted to progress in my career, yet that job didn't allow me to. So one fine day, the ministry decides to send us everybody in the IT department to a training course, and that training course was at one of the multinationals in Bahrain. And it was for a multinational firm which I highly admired. So naturally, the first thing I'd do is to reach out to a person who was working for that multinational and asking him about career possibilities. So young, ambitious, and I graduated top of my class, and I was really looking forward to a positive answer. But the answer that I received really shocked me. He told me, "We don't hire women because they get married and they bear children, they take long maternity leaves, and they're basically a burden to the organization. They're less inclined to travel once they settle down." And can you imagine kind of like the disappointment that I felt at that stage, to be kind of like stereotyped for being that kind of woman? No one cared to ask me what I wanted in my career. But it just became apparent when I went about looking for more opportunities in the market that the issue of gender was becoming very prominent now, especially for the roles that I was aspiring to have. So I felt that I was at a stage of my life where I was very stuck. And it was painful, especially for a young person who was looking to be many great things. And we see our kids today, and if someone tells them that they are limited in what they can do, it pains us, as Safana has shared before about her aspirations for her daughter. So back then, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. An opportunity came, and it was a strange one, because the opportunity was to head up a startup company in Saudi Arabia. Now, back then, I didn't know anyone in Bahrain who was leaving the country to go seek an opportunity in Saudi or anywhere else, especially not in my circles, especially not amongst my social circles of friends, family, acquaintances. We didn't know anybody. And Saudi, to everybody, it was like a place where it wasn't exactly the perfect environment for women to thrive and be successful. So I was still very excited. Anything was better than the status quo. I went running to my mom and to tell her all about this new opportunity. And my mom, being such a wonderful woman that she is, and very wise, she didn't say no. She was very careful. and about how she rationalized with my decisions, that she had some really valid points. She told me, Jehan, you live in a sheltered environment. You have no bills to pay for, no expenses to worry about. You use the family car for your commutes, and you want to go to a place where if you deduct all your expenses, you'd end up making less than what you're doing now. So how is this even a financially sound decision? But it just, having a government job, and this is no big secret, it increases the viability of a woman getting married in my culture because they end their working hours at 2 p.m. It allows them to have a balance between work life and family life. They can go home, prepare a meal, be with their family. So why and who in their sane state of mind would want to leave such a secure job to go pursue opportunities in Saudi? So at that point, I felt I was swimming against the tide, but at the same time, I was making a conscious decision to make a proactive move in my career. So I took a leap of faith, and believe it or not, Saudi Arabia launched me. It was my success launching pad. Everything that I own in my career, in terms of success, I owe it to that courageous move, which took me completely out of my comfort zone. Here I was in a very confined working environment, a very clear job description, thrown into a very new business, a startup company where for the first time I had to, look after people. I had to make critical decisions that affected the company's performance. But it had, as well as all the learnings and the rewards, it also came with challenges. So I remember I was at a press conference once, and somebody approached me from a PR agency and said, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but you have to leave." Why? Because you're a female. Okay. So that's not something that you come across anywhere else in the world. But at the same time, whilst I was facing challenges in Saudi, it was a very big potential market, and multinational companies were vying to have a spot on my publication where I provided them with a platform where they could communicate their messages. So I got to meet with world leaders, I got to interview company CEOs, meet with prime ministers, and guess what? I even interviewed Bill Gates himself. So it was a very defining moment for me. Now, I managed to build a very strong brand name for myself. And I pause here, I want to tell you about career capital. So career capital is about the long term. Just like you would save up to buy a car, to buy a house, you need to make continual investments. And it's not something that you develop over a period of weeks or months. It'll take you years. And you'll be put into situations which are hard and that will take you out of your comfort zone. And I remember once, following my stint at the publication, I was invited to join a multinational organization to head up their PR and executive communications. And I did really well, and I was invited to speak at a public PR conference in Saudi Arabia. And so in a public setting, I spoke about some of the projects that the company had done, which one of them involved being, providing some kind of technologies for the future King Abdullah economic cities, where the king himself was present. So I was very proud of my work, and I came down from the stage. The person who took the stage after me began his speech by saying, "Good men don't marry women in marketing and communications because of the public nature, public-facing nature of the role." And event's perspective. It said Miss Jehan Abdulkarim, not Mrs. Jehan Abdulkarim. So I just felt that it was an insult to me in a public setting. So, you learn how to deal with those challenges, and it just doesn't come to you only from society. It also can come to you from within the organization. You need to have the skills to know how to deal with them. I remember that, I was really happy in multinationals because in contrast to the first job that I had before, where it really depended on whom I know in order to get higher up the career ladder, here I was progressing at the rate of my personal growth for my own merit. So I was progressing really fast if I wanted to grow very fast. And the speed at which my career was progressing obviously attracted the attention of people within the organization, and sometimes undesired attention. So I was criticized for being too out there. So in our culture, shyness is a virtue. So being too out there, I was being viewed with a very unkind eye. And I remember one of my colleagues came to me, dressed up in a very well-intentioned manner, and said to me, Jehan, if you care about your reputation, you will pack your bags and you'll go home to Bahrain. And he knew that he was touching on a subject that was very, very sensitive, especially to us women here in the Middle East. And had I not had the emotional intelligence, had I not built on the skills that I had acquired during my time before in my other jobs, and learned about organizational psychology, I wouldn't have been able to decipher his message. I wouldn't have been able to understand what he meant when he told me what he told me. But then that gave me the drive to push even further on my career. So now I was awarded with a region with wider remits, and challenges didn't stop. Back home, for example, everybody was telling my mom that your daughter's chances of getting married has now completely diminished. I've been away from home for almost 16 years by then, and till today, I'm a very happily married woman. It hurts me to remember the stuff that they used to say about me, that I am a very self-centered woman, that I care about money more than family values. But I'm lucky to have the support and understanding of my family, and also to remember that the skills and the knowledge and the capabilities, the investments that I made in myself, that took time and patience to deal with. Today we had some really powerful talks, and they talked about perseverance. And I want to ask you, what are you doing today that, do you know where you want to be in the next 5 years? Do you know how to get yourself there in terms of your career? In Accenture, we pride ourselves in being a company that's very supportive of our women. And I remember on my first day when I joined Accenture, I was invited to this Geo Council leadership meeting where members of the management, they get to discuss growth plans. And one item on the agenda just, struck me. My eyes were just glued to it. It said, growing and advancing women in Accenture. And it was my first day, so excuse me if I thought for a split second in the back of my head that cynically, I've been in this region long enough to know this is just yet another tick in the box. But what happened afterwards really changed my perspective. Now, I was taken through a program where I got to realize all the different things that Accenture provided for women. So amongst them was International Women's Day. We have Accenture Women's Network. It's a platform where it's like a mini Bold Talks within our company, where we get to meet with all other well-accomplished women across the globe, and they get to share their experiences. And this is available for all women across all levels. You don't have to be at a certain level to capitalize on that training. The myriad of trainings that we were given, so everything is available for you, whether being negotiation skills, skills that got to do with being client-centric, emotional intelligence, and all the things that you need in order for you to succeed in your career. So the reason why I can be with you here today to share my story, and it's because that Accenture truly and deeply believes in the value of sharing learnings and experiences. And we can support great initiatives like Bold Talks because, as you saw today, that we were all able to learn something from the experiences of other amazing women. And all of them gave great examples of perseverance. So I'd like you to think about your career capital because it's got everything to do with perseverance. It takes a long time, and the value of your investments take a long time to build up. Now remember the first guy who told me that we don't hire women? Well, guess what? I ended up joining that organization, and he ended up indirectly reporting to me. It was a blow to his ego. He had to leave. Thank you. So all investments require time for you to nurture and to build in value. And you can't just throw money at your investment and then walk away. You have to continually add to it. So you'll also need to figure out what you need in order to get you to your target destination. What do you need in terms of capabilities? What do you need in terms of knowledge? Keep adding to it. Keep reinventing yourself. Keep diversifying because you never know. The future is so bright. You just need to look at the right direction and grab what you can. Thank you. Thank you.